8%.
8%, jeez. This will be a first live film journey. You ready? All right. Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones. If you're new here, welcome. I talk about all things movies, and today I got this guy in here.
This bucko.
I finally got my boy, Cris Hurtado, in here. You know him. If you're a fan of the channel and you've known him for a long, long time, I'm super excited to have him break into my house recently. And, what have you been up to, dude?
I've been great. I've been working, but I did a lot of reviews and I ranked my recent Star Wars movies to a lot of positivity that I was not wanting and working on the podcast Inside the Sequel.
Yeah, tell us about the podcast, man.
So Inside the Sequel is my love child. It's a podcast where we talk about sequel movies that don't get enough love and attention, and they definitely deserve it. My most recent one, we did Incredibles 2. You and I have, talked about Shrek 2, and we're going to probably do Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2 soon.
Yeah,
so.
I got to see it.
I'm not joking. We're going to do that one.
Never even seen the first. I'm just going straight for the second.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing about Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
This is what we're going to talk about.
I've seen all three of them. The Holy Trilogy. I've seen all three. The first one is legitimately good. I actually really like it. 2, they changed the voice acting, but I still enjoy it. 3 is a shit show.
They changed the voice acting.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we're here to do today?
Mm-hmm.
We're here to talk basketball, which is why he's got his Toronto hat on, and I got my Pacers.
That's right.
The season's about to start up, dude.
Yeah, we gave Fred VanVleet that fat check.
Dude, I'm glad that he's staying.
Yeah, he's a Rockford native, much like myself. That's true.
R.I.P. Lakers win again.
I actually like the Lakers, so I was happy about that. Also, LBJ
Sure.
King. Chris Bowie's probably shaking his head no to that, but
and half the people who are watching this are like, okay, now I gotta unsubscribe to Nathan because he just lost all his credibility that he's
yeah, we're not just cinephiles, we're also sports guys.
Well, speak for yourself. I like basketball, and that's pretty much my only sport.
Basically, from all the friends, I'm the only one that watches sports legitimately consistently. I feel like, and then it's like I can't talk to anybody except my friends from Canada, and then it's like my friends back home too are fucking waste. So it's like I'm just kidding.
All right, man. Well, we are jumping into a film journey, and this is actually the first live one, because obviously due to circumstances, but luckily, Cris was luckily available and is doing all right, and I'm doing all right too. And
okay,
we're
good. Yeah, this is number 14.
Oh, this is number 14?
I think, or 13 for your film journeys.
This is like number 16.
Oh, I don't watch the channel, so I don't know. I don't even know who this guy is. He just hit me up. I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know who this guy is anyway.
What's your favorite episode so far from your film journey series? Put somebody on blast.
Oh, shoot.
Right now. Put everyone on blast and just talk about one person you've enjoyed, because it better be Cobweebs.
Well, it could be Daniel. It could be Chris Bowie. Could be, Aaron Pynn. I have no idea who it is. It could
Disrespect to Heath Holland. Fuck.
I was about to say it could be Heath.
Does Heath even like me? Does he acknowledge my existence? I need him to answer that.
This is something I'm going to have to put out of the video. All right, so we're going to jump into Chris's film journey, and I'm excited for it, and I hope Chris is as well. So, buddy, what are some early memories you have with film?
Let's see. When I was conceived, my parents were watching Pulp Fiction. So right off the bat, as a sperm, I was watching Pulp Fiction. When I came out of the birth, 1996, Space Jam was playing in the hospital, so that's where I got my love for sports. My first steps, I probably was at 6 months, and there's still 96. I probably watched Multiplicity with Michael Keaton. And at my end of my first year, I watched Titanic, because I think that was... No, Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture, so I watched that.
No, you haven't.
No
one's seen that movie.
I tried watching that movie 2 separate times, and I cannot finish it because the movie legitimately is ass. It is such a horrible film. But anyway, to seriously say where my first film journey came from, I don't know, my dad will say in 1999, so 3 years old, he took me and my mom to the theater to see Phantom Menace, and he said I was crying the whole time in the line for the theater, to get into the theater, and then as soon as the movie started, I fell asleep. So, I mean, that's, I guess, the first, but I always remembered going to the movies, because we had like the $5 movie theater where I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and we watched basically everything that came out when they were about to move away. $5 to get to see them. So we went there a lot. I saw amazing films there. I saw like King Kong. I saw Return of the King, Revenge of the Sith. Just fantastic films there. But like sometimes we would go to the expensive theater before it was an AMC. It's had like a big K as the logo. I can't remember what they're called, but we would go there, and I remember watching the first two Lord of the Rings movies there. I remember watching the Hannah Montana movie when it came to theaters. I remember seeing Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
The one that we like to forget.
Yeah, I saw a lot of shit too in theaters, but I think most of my love for movie comes from movie theaters because it was such an experience to go. And I don't know, like even like with theaters not being open now, like I thought I'd miss them more, but like those memories are still with me, so it's like I'm good. Like I have so many great movie theater memories to last me even when I can't be in there. But whenever I'm in there, it is always a temple. It's like I get really pissed off when people talk in theaters. Not to the point where I'm going to tell them to shush because I'm a shy boy, but
not our buddy Seth. He'll tell them.
I love that. That's why I always have to take Seth with me to movies. He's my muscle, and it's like I walk in like this, all happy, and he's just like the big buff guy. He's like this. He's like, be quiet. Not really, but I don't know. I've always loved going to theaters, but we were also very poor, so we would rent a lot of movies at Family Video, and it was always my mom and I that would go to movies. I've been rambling a lot, I feel like.
No, not at all. What are some like movie memories with your mom? Like some early titles that you remember?
Okay, yeah, my mom is like the most famous, I feel like, on my channel because I talk about her all the time. But I didn't watch. I probably wouldn't have loved movies the way I did if it wasn't for her. Because it was her and I for a long time, and then my dad came, and you know my brother and sister got bored. But like it was always her and I with watching movies, and my cousins. But I don't know, it was just always about her and I. And she had a love for horror movies. She still to this day will watch basically any horror movie if you put it in front of her, and she will like sit and watch it until she falls asleep eventually. But I remember watching Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time because she showed it to me. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I was way too young, but I loved it. Like my eyes were popping. I was so excited and seeing this Freddy Krueger character. I remember in 3rd or 4th grade, I made my own Freddy Krueger costume because of it, and I think it's always been downhill from there. Like I still to this day watch whatever horror movies you put in front of me, and even when I go home sometimes to see her, like I'll bring movies just to show her and watch with her. Let's see, we would go to Family Video all the time. I would sneak movies with excessive nudity in the bottom section and not tell her so I could watch that. You know, typical adolescent things. I never went into the Family Video back room though. To this day, I've still never peeked.
I didn't know there was a back room.
Oh, there's a back room.
Oh.
It's got so much good porn parodies that I kind of want to watch for the filmmaking.
Just for the filmmaking, the craft of what filmmaking is all about. So going past the room and going into the later adolescence, when you kind of were in high school, what direction were you going?
Sophomore year, I had this teacher. He was a baseball coach, believe it or not, but he was actually a really good teacher. And the class was Modern Problems. It was a debate class. I was the youngest one in that class because it was mostly juniors and seniors. I was the only sophomore. And I made it. Basically, we would have like a tournament for like speeches and debates, and I made it to the final and lost, much like most of my life. Always get there, but can never make it through. But he had this poster for like every Best Picture winner up until I guess that was 2012 when I was there. And he was a big movie guy too, and most assignments were centered around movies of sorts. And I would talk to him all the time. He took a liking to me. And I asked him about this poster, and he was like, no one's ever noticed that. And we started talking, and he told me he had seen every single one of those movies. And when after he had finished those, he watched all the nominations for him for each of those years. And then started watching like the movies where the best actor had won for that year. Just this insane thing. And I liked that idea, and I kind of thought of myself as a cinephile at the time in 2012, watching really shitty films from Family Video. So I took it upon myself, too, to kind of, like, challenge that in a way. I never, still to this day, can't compete with that, but, like, because of him, I wouldn't have seen, like, 1945's Best Picture winner, The Lost Weekend, which is one of my all-time favorites. Like, I wouldn't have watched that movie if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't have watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, I wouldn't have... outside of that, I think the Best Picture winners I've seen at that time were, like, the Rocky movies and, like, Titanic, obviously,
Right.
but
Or
because
Jaws or something. Yeah.
well, no, I actually didn't see
Jaws?
Jaws until I was an adult. Because that was what 75, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the best movie in the 70s was 1979's Alien.
Well, then what won 75?
75.
76 was Annie Hall, right?
77, I think, was
77.
Annie Hall. I
Okay,
could be wrong. Yeah, because Star Wars was nominated that year, and Annie Hall, I think, beat it. Rocky, I think, was 76 because it beat Taxi Driver. So One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or was that a Godfather Part 2? I could be wrong.
Anyway.
I don't know film.
Yeah, we're just getting, it's late night and we don't really know what's going on. But yeah, so I guess past that point, when you met this, your coach who kind of showed you all these Best Picture winners, what was the next step? Like in college, was there like an exploration after that point?
I don't know. Like when I was in high school, I didn't fit in with particular groups. I had like my set of friends, but we played video games all the time. I was the only big movie guy, so like through high school and all through college, I had like my own film like education, I guess. Like I would like set like, okay, you need to watch movies from this decade. You need to watch some Best Picture winners. You need to sprinkle in some modern films. And I don't know. In high school, like I remember like one time staying up super late to watch The Godfather in a portable DVD player. And I couldn't let my parents know that I was watching it. So every time I hear steps of the light, I would close my portable DVD player. I remember having a heart attack when Michael was about to kill Sollozzo in the dinner in the dining scene. Like my heart pounds still to this day because I remember that first time experiencing that. And then when I got to community college, I started buying movies. Is like I think I kind of where it really started. I think that 1979 Alien anniversary set that I bought was like my first Blu-ray I bought.
Oh, wow.
Well, actually, no. My first Blu-ray, I think, technically was a Best Buy purchase. It was the Kurt Cobain About a Boy Blu-ray.
Oh, wow.
It was a Blu-ray of recorded, never before released, recording interviews on audio tapes with his own artwork that he did growing up with, like, famous artists depicting what he was saying in these audio tapes. And that's basically what the movie was. It was weird. It was such a weird thing. But I liked it. And then I bought the Alien.
Right.
But that's
natural transition right there to Geiger.
Right, yeah. Dude, I hate DVDs. Like, I really do. But good Lord, I had a shit ton of DVDs in my parents' house, I think, that are still there.
Just leave them there for them.
I did. And I took all the Blu-rays that I think were technically mine, and I brought them back with me.
Mm-hmm.
But in college, I bought a lot of Blu-rays because we had a place called Disc Replay, and they were dirt cheap Blu-rays. So I would buy a shit ton to replace those DVDs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like in college, it was more of an exploration. I started watching more horror movies again. And then when I went to Westminster and met Daniel, I mean, there was so much more that I discovered than I even thought possible.
Yeah, I guess that kind of leads to like our modern friendship, like where we're friends with. We mentioned Daniel Cobwebs. He's been on the channel. He's got a great podcast. But we also mentioned Seth, our other friend. That's actually how we all met each other. Is we worked at a coffee shop together, and we all started talking about film. And then you eventually moved down here, and then we became all good friends and stuff. But I think it's interesting because I know you mentioned earlier about like theater experiences. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of theater experiences with you. Yeah. And a lot of them have been pretty memorable too. Can you tell me some of those theater experiences that you recall, not just like with me, but like with with Seth or Daniel or other friends of ours?
Oh boy. With Daniel, there's been quite a few because in college we had a B&B, which stands for Bad and Bummy Theater. Yep. It's a local theater in Missouri.
Yep, where I'm from.
Whoops. Yeah. So we had one in college. We could get $3 movie tickets. So Daniel and I exploited the shit out of it. We saw so many films at B&B there. That was like the first time I think I actually saw Marvel movies at release because of that. Like I saw Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, Doctor Strange, and Infinity War. Because before that, I never really saw any of those MCU movies at opening night. I still to this day haven't seen every single MCU movie. They're like the Avengers Assemble. Still haven't seen that. Yeah, I haven't seen that. But I don't know. Like I grew up reading the comics and the cartoons and stuff. So I felt like I knew them enough, and I needed to watch some of them. I don't know. I was kind of like having a fatigue, and I thought it was like cool to hate MCU movies, and it still kind of is, but because Justice League's better. No, just kidding. But I don't know. The theaters, the experience I had with Daniel we saw Sunset Boulevard at like an early retro screening, and that was amazing because I love that movie, and that was great. Let's see, what else have I seen with him? One time we double featured watching Life with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
And the Power Rangers movie that came out. And that was a fun night. The movies weren't... Life was pretty solid, but it's
fine.
It's a one-time watch.
Right.
But Power Rangers was atrocious.
Not from our childhood.
Yeah, definitely not. But I did dress... Did you ever dress up as a Power Ranger as a kid? Because I did.
I did when I was...
Which one? Aaron Pym's gonna, like, analyze this if you
Oh.
don't remember which generation of Power Rangers it was.
Oh, no.
Mine was the... not the Dino Force. It was the animal. The jungle...
Animor. Yeah.
The Jungle Force, because I had, like, the lion costume.
I was in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was my go-to movie when I was a kid, and I believe that I was the white or the black. Like, I would switch between those two.
Yeah, Red's always been my favorite of the incarnations. I don't know why.
But, I haven't seen the new Power Rangers, and I don't really plan on doing that. It's a little bit past me. But, yeah, those are some good memories with Daniel. Any other ones with, like, Seth or...
With Seth? I mean, without Seth, I probably still wouldn't have seen a lot of these MCU movies. And, like... Well, I've always seen the Star Wars movies opening night. But, like, the MCU movies I would not have seen without him. Because I guess it's like a religion for him to see them. I guess it's a big deal to see MCU movies at release night.
I've seen most of them on release night.
there you go. I never even saw, like, Iron Man on release. I saw it on Blu-ray.
Well, that's when I first saw that one.
Oh, I didn't even see Dark Knight in theater. I'm just adding all these people who've seen all these movies, and I'm like, fuck you.
I love how you're, like, sprinkling in, like, Sunset Boulevard, and, like, you're talking about Power Rangers.
I actually watch real movies and not, like, this fucking roller coaster shit that people all see in theaters.
We've had some good memories.
Yeah, when we saw The Farewell, that's like my modern day, like most up to date viewing where I'm like, ugh, such a phenomenal, like what a picture, you know, like that was like a standout moment. One of my most favorite theater experiences, and I'm gonna get shit on because of the movie it was, but I remember seeing The Lobster at like an 11 p.m. fucking showing at my hometown with a friend of mine. And it was one of the smaller screens. You know, the theaters have like the smaller screens. Mm-hmm. It was played on one of those. It was 11 p.m. And I just pulled up because I wanted to hang out with my friend, and he wanted to see this movie. And I was so captivated by it. It was my first Yorgos film. I didn't even know who the fuck Yorgos was. And I watched it, and by the end of the movie, I was like, my eyes are fucking open to like what real movies can be like. And I know people in their opinions on that movie or whatever. It's like, I don't fucking care. I love the movie.
Oh, the movie's great. I think a lot of people who are watching this probably would agree with that.
Yeah, like, I mean, Yorgos is one of my favorites for sure, but that theater experience just in itself felt awesome. Oof, that's the alcohol. I don't know, I've seen, like, so many movies, I feel like, that, I don't know, like, I put on movies and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to see that one again, but, I mean, I think I've always, I don't know, I feel like people our age, maybe, I don't know, you're kind of old, but people like my age at 24 and a little bit younger, I feel like we're so, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of like pressured to like certain movies that like came out at a certain time for a lot of people. And like, if you don't like this movie, like, you don't like movies, you know? And I don't know, I've always felt like I've been true to myself with movie watching. Like, I've always, like, even to this day, I'll fucking watch something that was related to me as a child and, like, think it's phenomenal. Like, I'll watch Pokemon and Pokemon 2000, and I'll be like, I'll put this up against a fucking Criterion release any day of the week. You know? Like, I don't know, and I hate to bring up the Criterion collection on this fucking journey.
You.
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't know, I've always liked that. Like, I'm always happy and eager to hear opinions of people who have seen, like, these really, like, nostalgic and, like, kind of fun cheese and, like, hold it up to a pedestal.
Yeah.
And, like, defend that with their lives. Like, I want to, like, take up a sword and shield and, like, defend that with them.
Well, one thing that I do love about you, Chris, is that you do have this... Well, I guess it's one thing that I love about a lot of my friends, to be honest, but I think that what I really enjoy is the fact that you and most of my friends don't care kind of what other people kind of put them in like this box and this expectation. And, you know, thinking about, you know, your age, like you said, I mean, I teach, you know, students that are maybe 6 or 7 years younger than you right now, and I do notice a big difference.
Boy, is that true.
And so, and obviously, I'm not terribly too much older than Chris. I'm near 30, but you know, there is this weird the gap, I think, with the expectations of, because of when certain people grew up with like streaming or DVD or Blu-ray, like, because when a lot of I think, you know, my students maybe who are around 18 years old, they were born at the turn of the century, you know, kind of, or a little bit later than that, and you know, that was like kind of when they were growing up, you know, physical media was exiting out of existence, really. I mean, it's alive and well, especially for a lot of us boutique you know, fiends who really just love film, and I think this is where a lot of the passion lies. And I mean, you have lots of really great releases too. You know, we you know, you were shitting on Criterion, but you love like Arrow, you like Criterion, you like it. I said like.
I am such a whore for labels. I'm actually thinking of like, yeah, I know you're downsizing, and when I go home, I like to take a huge ass like box of Blu-rays, like standard releases, and like trade them in at Disc Replay, and then buy a bunch of their really cheap boutique labels. Because that's like what I did my first summer back home. Like I brought in a bunch of movies and just upgraded. I don't know. It's like, because I loved growing up to going to the movie store like a lot, and we had a lot of mom and pop shops that sold a lot of Blu-rays. And it's like, I don't know, collecting has always been a part. Like I always collected all the Lord of the Rings figures when I was a kid. I collected these stupid little like toys that don't matter, and like, you know, I always thought I want to eventually have a chance to be like a movie store of my own, where I can just pick out something that I know I'm gonna like and like have it on there. So that's why I'm like kind of like with Blu-ray collecting, it's like there's a lot of great shit that you can buy, but like just because it has a label doesn't mean you have to buy it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I kind of had that mindset early on when I started getting into the labels, and it's like, I'm like, they're just taking up space.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting dynamic, because as you know, you said I'm downsizing. I am downsizing quite a bit. You can't see this off camera, but this bottom row is practically empty now, and there's some films on across the way, but I think I'm starting to prioritize more on the stuff that, like, just because it's a label, just because it's shiny or something that's like, oh, that looks really cool, or it's limited. Yeah, there's that allure, and I think a lot of us who are watching this know that, and a lot of us are, you know, invested in that, and we love that, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, but I am getting to the point, and I know a lot of people know this, but yeah, I'm getting to a point where I'm starting to prioritize, and I think you've always had that.
There's a time in my life when I was living at home and I was in community college. Never got my associates. I'm a stupid idiot, I know, but there was a time where I was like, I'm gonna move out and I'm going to be on my own. But I also want to carry with me the things that I never got to have when I was younger. And a lot of those were movies. Like, I could buy the DVDs, but even as a younger kid, I could notice how shitty some DVDs looked. And I absolutely hated the black cases with DVDs. Like, I hated it. And I don't know if it's because we had a lot of bootleg movies, like, from our friends who would let us borrow it. Or, like, I don't know, just something about it, I just was like, no. But when I saw Blu-rays and the blue case and, like, just the clearer picture, I was like, I want these. But they were so expensive early on, so we couldn't get them. And then eventually I was like, well, I want to have the movies I grew up watching and enjoy them now. So it's like, Pokemon The Indigo League has Blu-ray now, but it's not the kind of Blu-ray I want. It doesn't have the Johto journeys. It doesn't have like that. It doesn't even have the Orange Islands. You know, so I'm like pissed off at that, and I'm waiting for a Blu-ray definitive edition for all these Pokemon movies, because it's like I grew up watching Pokemon, and like I'll still watch those Pokemon movies. Like, I'm waiting for the Pokemon not Yu-Gi-Oh! The first movie to have a very inexpensive Blu-ray, because it's so fucking expensive. You know, it's like weird little shit like that, where it's like I want those almost, and I prioritize those more than like the latest like Arrow release and stuff like that. While also saying that Arrow is releasing Demons 1 and 2, but those had Synapse releases, so it's like, why are you gonna do that? I don't know. That's my little gripe right now.
So I guess shifting back to thinking about like when you were growing up, do you have like a certain moment that you realized that you were in film? Was it with your mom that you realized that like this was something that you cared about?
So my mom likes watching movies because she likes to just like enjoy a story, and then like after that she'll move on to something else, you know. But for me, when I would watch movies, I would want to be people in those movies. I can't tell you how many times I reenacted with my brother, pretending to be Aragorn, pretending to be Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, you know, or like pretend I'm a Power Ranger. Like I always liked characters in movies, so it's like, I don't know, like I like certain movies if there's characters I like a lot. You know, does that make sense? I don't know. I've always been like that, and I think that's when I knew I was obsessed with movies. Is when I was acting out scenes in like every Saturday morning. I wouldn't watch cartoons all the time, except it was Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, or DBZ. Like I would watch that stuff, but like most of my Saturday morning was, reenacting scenes. It's the alcohol. This is fucking 8%. I would reenact scenes from movies. Like I watched Troy so young as a kid, and Brian Cox is fucking amazing in that movie. I don't care what anybody says. Peter O'Toole's in it too.
Yeah, of course.
But I would reenact scenes from fucking Troy. You know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't want to point a sword like Brad Pitt? You know, from the Temple of Apollo towards
and then turn around and slash the head off.
Yeah, and cut off the head of the Apollo. And then you just see Eric Bana be like, "Oh man, what are you doing that for?"
Eric Bana's my favorite character in that whole movie.
Well, yeah,
I hate when he dies.
He's the most tragic character.
I know. And yeah. I read the Iliad in like 5th grade because I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great story too.
It's true, but like it's like little shit like that. Like I would want. That's how I knew I loved movies. Like I want to be these characters and I want to play as these characters. And I don't know. And then as the older I got, I started paying attention. Like with that teacher, I'm like, wow, movies are like intelligent. You know, they're not just slashing, like killing on scenes and Star Wars all the time. But I think that's where it started, was like in high school, that sophomore year is when I started knowing, like when I saw The Lost Weekend, I was like, Jesus Christ, I could not believe that's what movies could be like. And even to this day, I think I watch more movies like with a technical look on it now too, and I think that's because of being friends with Seth for so long now too. Like if a movie's like ugly, I kind of will like get off of it a little bit, but then to a point I kind of like I appreciate it. I think that's why I like French films. Like sometimes the technical work of those movies aren't really good at all. Like I'll be.
It's not. Oh, it's more about the form than the.
Yeah. Like Breathless's story is pretty simplistic when you strip it down, but like the technical work is so fascinating for its time. Even though technically it's shitty, I'm still very fascinated by it, and I like it. I mean, it's part of the reason why I watch Godzilla movies now. Is like one part of it reminds me of Saturday morning cartoons, but another side of it is the way I'm so fascinated by how they made the movies. Because like they have like scenes where the armies are like little miniature figures, and they blow it up and they rebuild, like kind of like Lord of the Rings. You know, watching the bonus features, Peter Jackson's had such an eye for like the technical work of those movies.
All the Weta Workshop
stuff. Creating replicas of like the shots and coming down from the camera and bringing it up to make it look bigger. Like that stuff, even as a kid, like kind of fascinated me.
Right.
I think I even illegally recorded a Weta Workshop like documentary series on TV, like a 2020 on it, because Lord of the Rings was such a fucking deal when we were growing up. And I think I recorded on a VHS, and I would watch the bonus features on that sometimes, like dead ass. Like I would watch the Weta Works on that. And it was a really nerdy guy, and I was like, "This is my kind of guy."
So, like, kind of getting back to, you know, I think when you said you were acting out with your brother, I don't think many people aren't around Chris to know this, but Chris, out of all of my friends, quotes movies better than anybody I know. And so now that I'm thinking about that, you know, that makes a lot of sense that you would act that out. And so like you have a really great memory when it comes to these things. And I think just imagining yourself in these positions is something that I don't really know very many of my friends, or any of my friends really, who are like that. So like, I guess, is that why you would think this is like where you are now with film?
Yeah, I can't remember a time where I wasn't watching movies. I think is where it comes down to. Because like growing up, my parents would put movies on. Like my dad, ask my dad, how many times was I at home and he would have to babysit me while my mom worked, and he'd have to put in Hercules, and I'd be singing Zero to Hero all the time, you know, and eating mac and cheese with hot dogs with ketchup. Like that's like my dad will say that shit all the time, and then like driving on long trips, my grandma had one of those vans that had the DVD player. Like that's the only fancy thing I think we had. And like I watched Clone Wars so many times, like the Attack of the Clones on that so many times, in the B movie and the Shrek movies. Like I can't remember a time where I wasn't watching movies. I don't mean to sound pretentious, but
Well, no, not at all. I mean, like that's part of your life and what you've grown up with, and it's still today. Like I was gonna ask, like this leads, I think, naturally to what do movies currently mean to you now?
see, that's like my only struggle. It's like my only Achilles heel is like watching the modern stuff. And I don't even think like I have to be watching 1920s films or the golden age of the 30s or whatever people say. But with modern films, I struggle with. I think it's because access. I can't afford to go see a movie in theaters. I mean, when Movie Pass was around, like that was a great time. But like I would also rewatch the same movie sometimes. Like I would sneak in and do something else. But it's always been a struggle to watch the modern things because, like, at one point we stopped going to the theater a lot of times, and I would have to ask for money to go see certain movies, or my friends would pay for me to go, or I knew somebody at the movie theater, thank God, who would let me go in for free. And that's how we'd watch the shitty Kevin Hart comedy movies and the Godzilla from 2014 that pissed me off, and even to this day it does. But, like, I mean, that's, like, where I kind of struggles with modern movies. But luckily, I still watch like older movies that have access to. I don't try to stream as much anymore because I have a lot of physical media that I need to get into more. But like I think that's my only way of watching more modern. I haven't even seen like there's a lot of movies you and Seth and Daniel have seen that I have not seen at all. And I know sometimes Daniel will be like, how the hell have you not seen this movie?
Well, Daniel has he watches more movies than anyone we know.
That's so true.
So
I thought I watched a lot. That guy,
and I thought I watched a lot too.
That guy no lives.
Well, it's interesting though too. I mean, everyone can probably relate to this particular year. Is that I think a lot of us have not. We've been going back. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us, because of the current circumstances that we're in right now, we are diving into films that are from the past, like films like in October. Most of us are like we were watching horror films, or we were watching giallo films or slasher films, stuff that we enjoy during this time. Some of us discovering new things, and then in November we might be watching a little bit more family oriented things, and obviously with December when this is coming out, we'll be watching some Christmas related things. But we all have different phases, and I know you just recently watched all of the Godzilla in the Criterion, and you did a really fantastic video. If you haven't checked that out, you should definitely do so, because it's fantastic, because he does a deep dive, and it's really great. But yeah, I think it all comes down to phases. Right?
Oh no!
And
that's a Daniel.
I didn't mean to break him, but I think this year in particular has been a rough one for a lot of us, and so, but it's also one that we can look back on.
Yeah, Jesus Christ! Like, how many sales were there for Blu-rays that we indulged in this year?
I know. Don't pay attention to how many films I haven't seen behind me.
Good Lord, I've bought more things. Like, I've been more cavalier this year. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, yeah, you don't want to buy boutique labels, and this is going to Chris Bowie. Like, you don't have to buy every boutique label, but, like, there are some that you need to fucking buy. Like, that Gamera set, the Godzilla set, like, the Friday the 13th. Like, how do you say no to those? I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, I guess, so what, right now, because I know you were going through Godzilla, but is there any current things you've been watching recently?
Yeah, it took an unsuspecting twist. I've been going into that Melville box set. I remember talking to you months and months ago about, like, I watched Army of Shadows and I wasn't about it. I rewatched it, and I actually enjoy it this much, like, a little bit more now. And I've watched, like, 3 or 4 films from that box set now, and I've been getting into him. I don't know what else. When I was quarantined, like, I was actually getting bored of watching movies. Yeah. Like, I started playing video games again, and that's been great. So if you play FIFA, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm a FIFA fiend. But I've been going into that. I've been finishing up the Heisei series of Godzilla, and then I'll get into the Millennium very quickly. And then I'll be going into that Gamera set 100%. I got that Mario Bava set that I plan to get into.
That's a beautiful thing that you got.
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I really had to fight tooth and nail for that thing. It's about the hunt almost sometimes.
Well, yeah, no, this guy is also one of the luckiest guys in it, or at least he's a scout, like he's a bounty hunter for a lot of these things, and he hunts for out of print OOP, as you would. He'd hunt for these things, and so I think it's definitely nice to have Chris around, especially in the hunt. Although he will scalp you if you try to get like past him.
That's so true. It's all about the dollar bills, baby.
So, do you have any final thoughts about what your film journey looks like?
I mean, continuing. My favorite thing right now is like to knock precocious cinephiles, especially the old heads. I don't know why. I just really get off on doing that. But I don't know. Like I think at this time I'm not like. So I feel like there's a point in our lives where we're like, I haven't seen Citizen Kane yet, and I need to watch that because it's the best movie ever made. Am I ready for that? I'm at that stage where like I think I'm ready, but like I'm also not anxious to watch it because I think there's better things that I want to see.
Sure.
I'm in that weird phase, like that weird gray area where I'm kind of like enjoying what I'm watching, and then like maybe I'll get to the, the creme of the crop of like films. And I think I'm starting to realize I'm not so trigger. I don't have to be so trigger happy with sales.
Mm.
So I'm not having to buy so many boutique labels all the time. I don't know. Like my film journey, I'm pretty happy with it. I feel like every movie that I have in my collection, for the most part, I've seen, and like I have a connection to it, like growing up, because like that's part of why I love movies. It reminds me of parts of my life that, not the movie stories themselves, but like the actual movie. Like how many times have I seen Midnight in Paris, and I remember that night when I was just in my room watching it, and like I was the only one at the house, so there was no one there to bother me. And at that time, I was listening to a lot more like early jazz in like high school, and that movie at the time just hit like a fucking train, and it's like I won't let that movie ever go. How many times have you seen Lady Bird or Frances Ha? Like I don't know, like I'm at that stage now where the movies I've seen I appreciate, and like I'm comfortable, like I don't have to watch all these movies right now. Like I don't feel like I feel like it's a rat race, sometimes.
Right.
I think that's what Heath said on your latest film, one of your later film journeys, and he was just like, there's people who are just buying movies and not seeing them, and like there's definitely that, and like if you do that, check out that big dick energy you got. But I'm just like, at one point I was thinking I have to buy all these things, but like man, it's like just watch some of the ones you already have, and like, or rewatch a lot of the things you had, and just remind yourself like, oh, this is why I love movies.
Yeah, that's the reason why we started doing this, right? And like, if we have, I think this is a problem that like Heath was bringing up, and I also started realizing a little bit more because I've been rewatching a lot of things. So, like yesterday, I watched Night of the Hunter again. Today I watched Batman Returns. Like I'm rewatching things that are like, oh yeah, of course. Like I love these films. Like why the hell have I not been like? Yeah, I do. Do I have a lot of films that I haven't seen yet? Yes, I'm gonna get there. Yeah, and we have time. And I think that's the thing that like we need to start realizing is like, okay, we have time to do these things. Like there's no rush, there's no rat race. Yeah. And it's totally okay with that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love being a part of these film groups. I don't know, like I don't feel like I'm doing the Lord's work in any way or anything. But like some people are like, what should be in the Criterion Collection that will never be in there, or like what should they release next? And the reason I bring up the Criterion Collection is I feel like that's the most outspoken community, and like I love to comment. Like someone's like, "What's the best film in the Criterion Collection?" I'll say like, "Oh, a Scream Factor release," or an Arrow release, because like just because we have these preconceived notions of certain movies that like they're untouchable. But like in my mind, I don't know. I'm the troll of the group. I send memes. I like to pull people's legs. Just like when somebody wants to do something like that, I want to like, well, this thing isn't talked about enough, so like you guys are too much talking about this, let me just pull this out here. So I'll say like an Arrow release, because it's like I don't feel like people talk about Arrows enough, or like give those movies credit.
So do you have any finishing thoughts? Where can everyone find you?
Yes, you should check me on Inside the Sequel, where we talk about sequel movies. You can find me on Spotify, it's on iTunes, on Google Podcasts now too. That's Inside the Sequel, and then you can check out my YouTube channel, Hurtastic Reviews, which we do stupid shit on there all the time.
Well, Chris is fantastic. He's one of my best friends, and I'm so happy that he was able to break into my house and do this film journey, this first live one too. And it was all zany. He had a beer and all that fun stuff.
Okay, but does anybody like the mustache? That's the big thing.
Tell us down in the comment section.
Yes.
But anyway, give this video a like, comment down below, share this video, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time. I'm not joking around.